Okay, and welcome to our friends on Instagram and on Facebook as well, and of course our regular followers on Zoom. And tonight's discussion, my dear friends, is taking us to an extraordinary place. We're talking snakes, and we are talking splitting seas, and of course we're talking about plagues as well. What's up with miracles and the Exodus from Egypt? Because if there's one thing that's going to stand out in the entire Passover story, which of course is coming up in just a few weeks, and all the events of our history, is this incredible connection between the Jewish people and Nisim and great miracles that have been with us for thousands of years. But before we even begin, let's try to figure out what exactly, my friends, we are talking about. When we talk miracles, what is a miracle? So in Judaism, we actually differentiate between two types of miracle. Type 1 is what we refer to as Nes Nistar, which literally means a hidden miracle. The prime example of that, my friends, is the Purim story. The Purim story is rich with miracles, but you just don't see them. You're going to have to dig beneath the costume. You're going to have to go behind the scenes to see God's hand at work. Because God is Nistar, and that's where the name Esther as well is connected from, because Esther was hidden inside the palace of Ahasuerus, and all the events may seem coincidental, but of course we know that's not true. We always see the guiding hand of God in everything. That's one type of miracle. There's another type of miracle which is actually greater, and that's called a Nes Nigla, or a revealed miracle. And the prime example of that, of course, is Pesach. And it is no coincidence that Pesach is the first time in Jewish history where we see the Torah itself, the Bible, show us miracles that turn upside down the laws of nature. It all starts there in Egypt. What does that mean? There were no open miracles that happened before this time? Wait a minute. Didn't we learn in Hebrew school that there was an evil dictator by the name of Nimrod? And he took Abraham, and he threw him into a fiery furnace. And Abraham, because of his great spiritual stature, was saved by God himself, who went into the fiery furnace and pulled him out. And Abraham came out unscathed. My friends, that sounds like a pretty open and not a closed miracle to me. That's true, but that story is not recorded in the Torah. And had Abraham had open miracles that were known and recorded in the Torah, it would have taken away from our belief, because Abraham was important, but he was one. There's one God and there's one Abraham. So when do we start to see open miracles first occur for the first time? And we see them during our Egyptian exile. We know that Moses had to be persuaded. I know it sounds crazy, but God had to persuade Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, to go into Egypt to take the Jewish people out. Actually, it wasn't even a persuasion. It was an argument. Moses did not want the job. He was an extremely humble person, says the Torah. He was Ish Anav Ma'od. He was the humblest person in the entire world, maybe in all of history. And he's like, I can't go in. I've been outside the country for years. I've been in Midian. I've not been part of the people suffering. How can I go in? Please, God, take my older brother Aaron, who was the rabbi of the Jewish people. And God said, no, it's your job. It's not. Aaron has other great things to do. He's going to be the high priest. No small feat. But your job is to take the people out. And Moses fought and argued for 1 week. Imagine that. Imagine arguing with God for 1 week. If God said you're going, I'm like, see ya. But not Moshe Rabbeinu. Moses had to know that this was right. How did God persuade Moses? Well, he used a number of methods. But the most famous imagery that is depicted in the Torah is a miracle. And we know that Moses saw a burning bush and God spoke to him from the fire. What a strange image. We've never seen that before. Why is there a burning bush? See, the rabbis, the bush represents the Jewish people, alive and living and unified organism that is still have life, but they're on fire. They're not being destroyed in any way, shape, or form. And that, my friends, is the imagery that was given to Moses as a miracle to teach him, and of course to teach us, because that story was depicted in the Torah, that the removal of the Jewish people was going to be miraculous. And God himself went into Egypt to take us out. As it says in the Pesach Haggadah, Ani v'lo malach, I'm going in to do it myself. I'm not sending an angel. Ani v'lo saraf, I'm going in. Don't even send a fiery angel. Ani v'lo shaliach, and I'm not going to send a messenger. I myself am going to come. I'm using you, Moses, the tool. But you should know that the exodus from Egypt is going to involve miracles, because we are now delivering from Egypt a miraculous nature. And for the rest of Jewish history, miracles are going to be a rich and important part of who we are, to show that we are part of God's chosen nation. And when God wants to upturn all of nature to make a point and make his presence known, it's going to happen. And that, my friends, is the secret to the Nes Nigla. The word Nes means miracle, but it has other little words that are encoded in it. One is a nisayon. Nisayon is a test. And many times, miracles comes as tests. You can see the bush is burning. You can see that the snake is turning into a staff. And you can see that the staff is eating the snakes. It wasn't snakes eating, it was staff. And you can see the miracles. And you can see the plagues, as we're going to talk about in a few moments. And you know what? The Egyptians saw them. It's just conjurers. It's astrologers. It's just black magic. They weren't willing to accept the fact that these miracles came from the one and only God of the universe. It's a test. Do you pass it or not? Which means that Moses actually could have theoretically seen the burning bush, said, figment of my imagination. I must have had something wrong to eat at dinner. A little bit too much alcohol, and he could have walked away. And don't think that's so weird. I myself, over 20 years of working as a rabbi, have met many people with many incredible stories. And these stories are, without a shadow of a doubt, through their own admission, miraculous. And yet, just because you see a miracle, even if a miracle happens to you, it doesn't mean, my friends, that you're willing and able to turn your life around. Because for that to happen, it takes responsibility. So a miracle, it sounds weird, but is actually a test. Are you going to make a change based upon this amazing event, this incredible coincidence, maybe this upturning of nature that you actually witnessed and experienced? Another word for a nes is nes begiva, we say, or any other, is a flag or a banner. Why would the word for a flag or banner be a nes, which is the same as a miracle? And the rabbis say, because if you do make an action and make a change because of the miraculous things that you saw, whether revealed or hidden, if you make a change, it's as though you put a banner or a flag in the ground. When do we put flags in the ground? When we conquer territory. When we say, we own this space. This place belongs to me. I've conquered this. I've made a change in my life. And so Moses, when he saw the burning bush, said, I'm making a change. And by the way, many times miracles comes as lessons to teach us things, as we're going to see. And it even happened to Moses. Because Moses doubted that the Jewish people would accept his words and would leave. And God said, wow, did you just speak badly about the Jews? Do you really not hold your own people in any regard, that you think they are going to reject me, the one true God that they know about from Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Sarah and Rebecca and Rachel and Leah and all of our wonderful forefathers and foremothers? You think they're going to reject that? Put your hand in your pocket. Put his hand inside, and it was full of leprosy. which was a sign of Lashon Hara, a miracle. So Moses was taught a lesson at that moment through a miracle to say, if you don't believe that your people are going to accept me and your leadership, miraculously, it's not going to happen. Because if we don't speak well of each other, we're not going to succeed and get the Jewish people out. Because unity is the secret to miracle success. Okay, so Moses fights and argues for a week, and as you could expect, Moses loses the fight. Moshe Rabbeinu loses the argument, and he is chosen. And if you look, my friends, inside the Torah, you see very quickly that the various types of miracles that occur are quite specific. Let's jump to the big ones that everyone knows that we're going to talk about a lot at the Pesach Seder. Remember, I'm going to talk about this again. There are 7 mitzvot we are going to do at the Pesach Seder. 2 are min HaTorah, 2 are Torah obligations. The other 5 are rabbinic obligations. We're going to go through all 7 another time. But the 2 Torah mitzvot are 1, eating matzah at the Pesach Seder, and number 2, Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim, to speak about the Exodus from Egypt, which is actually encoded in the word Pesach. Pesach means the Passover, as we'll see in a moment. But Pesach means the mouth, Sach speaks. It's a mitzvah. Says the Torah. You have to tell over the story of the Exodus. Excite your children. Excite your guests. Explain to them what God did to your ancestors. And had he not done it, we would still be there now. There's a lot of gratitude we have towards the one and true God of the Jewish people. And part of the Haggadah experience, a big chunk of it, is discussing the 10 plagues. Different customs. Some people will talk about them and remove with their pinky, right? The Ashkenazic custom. Sephardim will pour out wine from the cup, not their pinky, put it into another cup and dispose of it. These 10 plagues, my friend, were actually about an 8-month university course. I'll say that again. They were all miraculous, and each one of these 10 was more severe than the one that preceded it. And they changed not only the nature of the Egyptians, they changed the relationship of the Jewish people to God, and my friends, they even changed our entire world history. Because once again, it is not a coincidence that open miracles were orchestrated at this time to accompany the Jewish people through the leaving of Egypt, to teach us that the rest of Jewish history is going to involve miracles. And with that comes a test, a responsibility, but the potential for great achievement. Let's have a look at these 10 plagues, because in these 10 plagues, we can learn a lot about the purpose and reasons for miracles. And what we're going to do is we're going to do what the Haggadah does. We usually say there are 10 plagues, so there's 10 commandments, and 10 main ideas in the first paragraph of the Shema. 10 is a big number. When you see the number 10, the number 10 in Judaism and Jewish life always represents that which is complete, that which is whole, that which is unified. It goes from 1 to 2, and 2 to 3, and it goes to number 9, and after 9, you get back to 1 again with a 0. It's a complete, you go back to the beginning, and it all comes full circle. So 10 is always representative of a complete and utter change. That's why between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there are 10 days, the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, their potential for a miraculous change in the nature of a person. And these 10 plagues are no exception. So the Haggadah divides these 10 plagues into 4 groupings: 3, 3, 3, and 1. And there's a reason why. Not only that, the first 2 of each of the first 3 groupings came with a 3-week warning. So let's look at the first plague: blood, dam. What happened? All the waters in Egypt. And the water in Egypt was crucial. Not much rain, as you know, in Egypt, but we saw some snow recently, in Israel as well. But rain is rare. They rely upon their natural water sources, like the Nile, to give them water and to water their crops. So the first thing God did was to turn all water into blood, except for the Jewish people, where it remained water. Now let's think about this for a second. First of all, this first plague, when Moses walked into Pharaoh, he said, "Hello, I'm here to represent," he didn't have this accent, I'm British, "I'm here to represent the God the one true God. And Pharaoh said, and what God are you talking about? And he said, God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob, the creator of the world and the universe. And he gave a name of God that had not been used before. It had appeared before, but wasn't a name of God that had been used by our forefathers and our foremothers. They had used the name El with a Sha and a Dai. Right? Shakai, as we refer to it. Shin with a Dalet and a Yud. That's the non-miraculous name, the non-miraculous manifestation of God. And that's how the Avot, our forefathers, that's why you don't see any miracles up to this point, because they never related to God in this way. But Moses, when he walked into Pharaoh, he said, I have a new attribute of God. This is the God of the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, which is actually a contraction of three names. Haya, he was. Hoveh, he is. Yiyeh, and he will be. This is the God of all world history. This is God who is above time and above nature, was, is, and will be. And most importantly, this is the name of God's attribute of mercy, of rachamim. You see, up to that point, people were very scared of their gods, small g. They needed the sun. They had the sun god Ra, and they had to appease the sun god. And they needed the Nile. And they needed the fish of the Nile. So they had the fish god, Dagon, and the sun god, Ra. So they had gods that had to be appeased. And we know there was even gods like Molech, that people used to sacrifice their own children in order to appease. These were scary, small g gods. And Moses walked in and said, I'm meant to represent the God of mercy, the God of love, who's above nature, who doesn't need us to appease him. He wants us to celebrate and to love him because he loves us. And you know what Pharaoh did? He pulled out one of his kids and said, bring me the book of gods. And they brought out this thick book. And he went through it and he saw 30. And he said, I got to the Y section, the Yud chapter, and your God's not there. And he closed it. Why didn't Pharaoh just 30,000 gods, small g's, I'll just add yours. Very nice, thanks for coming. Because the God of the children of Israel, the God of the true God of the universe, is love. And it was such a new concept that the Egyptians had never heard or experienced before. They couldn't just add it to the list. How does a loving God prove his love? How does a loving friend? They help you. They get involved personally in your life. And this was the first time, says the Ramban, that God showed he is actively involved, what's called hashgacha pratit, in the activities of this world. And how do you do that? You take a nation that is stuck, that is trapped, and you pull them out yourself in a miraculous way. And that shows, I love you and I'm with you. And you've got a big job to perform over world history. And you're going to need my Torah that I'm going to give you in about 50 days in order to fulfill that mission. And even the giving of the Torah was a miraculous event. It's all one thing, my friends. And so the first plague was blood. Second was frogs. And the third was lice. Dam, Tzefardea, Kinim. These three plagues of the rabbis have an amazing thing. They were a lesson to the Egyptians and the Jews and everyone else through world history that God has control over water, that's the dam, the blood, aquatic creatures, that's the frogs, some say they're actually crocodiles or alligators, and lice that occurred in the earth. So God's not just handing out random plagues. They came for a purpose, to break the spirit of the Egyptians and lift the spirit of the Jewish people. But they came for a reason, to teach a lesson that God's providence, that God's control has control over the physical location from below the earth and the water. That's the first three plagues. The second set of three plagues, because remember we're dividing it, right? First is Datzach. Next is Adash, which is Oref, wild animals, Dever, the epidemic, and Shchin, boils. So what exactly do those three plagues do? Well, the first is land animals. God's saying, Moses was saying, I have control over land animals. The first three are water, creatures in the water, dust of the earth. The next three are on the land. Land animals came to attack. The life of land animals were taken by the epidemic, by the dever, and the humans were affected by these terrible boils that actually manifest themselves all over their bodies. So now we have control over the earth and everything that's on the earth, all life forms. The third grouping, and remember, they're getting worse and worse by severity. By the fifth plague, Pharaoh was broken and he was willing to throw and wanted to throw in the towel, but God said, no, you had your chance. Now I'm going to use you to make my point and to finish these 10 plagues. And the third set of three were Barad, Arbe, Choshech. The final three are hail that came down, locusts, and darkness. So what do these three teach? That God is in control of everything that comes out of the heavens. Because the Barad came out of the heavens, the hail came out and destroyed the crops. The locusts came as swarms from above and ate everything else up. And the darkness obviously came from above as well. So the first three were God's control over the earth, the water, everything in it. Second three, everything on the land. And the last three, everything that comes from above and impacts the world from Shemaim. So God is saying, I am God of past, present, and future, and in the present of below, on top, and above. Full control. This was a university course. As we said, the first two of every three involved a 3-week warning, but the final one, no warning. It lasted for a week. So every single plague lasted for a week. And the Egyptians just didn't get it. They didn't see the nes in the nisayon. They didn't see the miracle in the test. And of course, the final and last plague was the makat buchorot, the killing of the firstborn. And that's when Pharaoh freaked out. Because Pharaoh was a firstborn. And he realized he was in big trouble. It was at that point that he ran around Egypt, as my kids always sang when they started to study this, Pharaoh in pajamas in the middle of the night. What was Pharaoh doing in the middle of the night? He was calling for Moses and Aaron, said, get him out of here. We've had enough of these Jews and no one left Egypt. But Pharaoh said, I want them out now. I don't want this. Because God did another great miracle. He passed over, Pasach, over the homes of the Jewish people who were living integrated with the Egyptians, and he killed every Egyptian firstborn, which, by the way, sometimes meant there was one death in every house. Sometimes there were 2, 4, or 5. It depends how many of the children were actually firstborns of different fathers. So it was a lot more difficult and challenging, that particular plague, than people realize. You know, I get a question a lot, which I want to just mention now. It's a very important question. Why are there no open miracles nowadays? It's a very fair question. And many young students will say to me, Rabbi, if I saw an open miracle, I'd be a believer. Well, first of all, that's not true. We've seen many times during world history that open miracles happen and people never really change their mode of thinking, their mode of life or understanding at all. So we know that's not true. And we know the Jewish people saw God speak at Mount Sinai, and soon afterwards they worshipped a golden calf. So you're not guaranteed to be a believer just because you see open miracles. But the question still stands. Why did open miracles go? By the way, when did the open miracles stop in history? That's the Hanukkah story. Hanukkah was pretty much the last time we see, that's about 200 years into the Second Temple period, we see the last open miracles happening for the Jewish people. The menorah lasting, the lights, which should last for one, lasting for all 8, and the miracle of a few Jews fighting off the large Assyrian Greek army. At that point, my friends, the spiritual world broke down and miracles disappeared, but they will return. The prophets tell us clearly in a number of places, Joel, Daniel, and others, that miracles are going to return to our people. And we are going to become prophets one more time. If we are worthy of it, Isaiah also attests to this, we're going to see crazy, amazing miracles, not only on par with the Exodus from Egypt, my friends, but even greater. It's going to overshadow the whole Pesach story, that we won't be talking about the Pesach story anymore and these miracles, because the miracle of the messianic revelation of Mashiach is going to be even greater. But why the gap? Why do miracles go away? I wanted to share with you one little short story from the Gemara in Tanya. I think I've told the story before, but I want to tell it again. And the story is told, my friends, of a great miracle man who most of you have never heard of. His name was Hanina ben Dosa. Hanina, the son of Dosa. And Hanina ben Dosa was someone the Jews used to go to when they needed miracles to happen for them. And they would visit him and they would say, could you just take care of this mission for us? Because we need someone who has the merit of miracles. And he was a very small and humble Jew, and he agreed. Why did miracles happen to him? And what can we learn from him about open miracles? Something very, very important and telling. And I'll tell you the story right now. Hanina ben Dosa had a daughter. I don't know where his wife was, but his daughter came to him one Erev Shabbat crying and said, Abba, I made a big, big mistake. I want to light the Shabbat candles. And instead of buying oil, I bought vinegar. And he said, so what's the problem? She's like, what do you mean what's the problem? I said, instead of buying oil, I bought vinegar. It's about to be Shabbat. I have no time to buy or find new oil. I can't do the mitzvah, the holy special mitzvah of lighting the Shabbat candles. And Hanina ben Dosa said to his daughter, I don't see the problem. Just light the vinegar. And she said, but vinegar doesn't burn. Oil burns. And Hanina ben Dosa said, the same God that makes oil burn can make vinegar burn. And she lit the lights, and they lit. And not only did they remain lit until after Shabbat, and she was even able to light the Havdalah candle from that candle, from those lights. Just so you know, Jewish women, if your Shabbat candles last all of Shabbat into Motzei Shabbat, you are a miraculous person. And you should contact me. We should have a conversation. People have said, should I just light a yahrzeit candle to make that happen? No, you can't cheat. Just light regular candles. If Hashem wants the miracle to happen, he can make it happen with a candle this big. What is the secret of this story? What was Hanina ben Dosa saying to his daughter? Something very important. He was saying, for you, there's something called nature, teva, and there's something called miracle, nes. The two for you are two separate things. Either we follow the nature model or we follow the miraculous model. He says, to me, they're one and the same. The fact the sun comes up in the morning to you is part of nature. I don't see it that way. That's a miracle. It just happens every single day. So we've become insensitive, numb to that reality. But everything that happens in the natural world is a miracle. Don't separate. They're not mutually exclusive. They are one thing. The birth of every child is a great miracle. I know the doctors see it again and again and again, so they lose the miraculous nature of it, but it's there for anyone who wants to see it. Everything that happens in this world in and of itself, which we call nature, is actually God masking this world with. So nature for us is a mask. Sometimes he opens the mask and allows us to go and see behind the scenes, to go behind the curtain, but not always. Who gets to do that? The people who see God in everything. If there is a person who knows for sure that it's God who's running all the events without a shadow of a doubt, like Hanina ben Dosa, God says, the laws of nature are not needed for you because you were able to see me behind the laws of nature, and therefore the laws of nature are suspended. It's like, you ever been to a costume party? Imagine you walk into a costume party and someone walks in wearing a gorilla outfit. Those like big hairy heads. It's Purim and the hairy body thing. And you're like, who is that? And they're like, "Rrr," and they're playing a game with you. You're like, is that Shoshana? Right? Is that Devora? Is that David? And it is David. What does David do as soon as you identify it's him under the mask, under the costume? He takes the head off. Right? There's no point pretending. You know it's me. God does exactly the same thing. When we see God behind the mask of nature that he's covered this world with, and a person has that ability, miracles occur. That's the secret, my friends, to open miracles and why they don't exist anymore, because we are not at the level to appreciate them. Hanina ben Dosa, he was. To him, there was no nature and miracle. It's all miraculous. To the Jewish people in Egypt, they got to see God like no one else had ever seen him, even the lowest handmaid. got to see visions of God that even the great prophet like Ezekiel the Jebusite, didn't ever see. Greater than his great prophecies. That, my friend, is the level of depth a person has to get to in order to appreciate and see great miracles in today's day and age. That is going to return. The prophet Joel tells us that prophecy is going to Eshpochet Ruchi. God says, I'm going to pour out my spirit onto your parents, onto your children, and everyone else. And it all reached a pinnacle, my friends, 7 days after leaving Egypt. We stood at the sea. And what happened? We know. God allowed the sea to split in order to teach a lesson and to kill the Egyptians that were trying to kill us. Right? They came first. And they were swallowed up by the water. There's one thing you'll notice in every single miracle story in all of scriptures, all of Tanakh, there's always one important theme. And you know what that is? A connective tissue that connects all of them. And this is important. Miracles don't just happen. Somebody has to do something in order for that miracle to occur. If you look in the Torah, there was an easterly wind that occurred the whole night before. And then Nachshon ben Aminadab jumped into the water up to his neck and the water split. And Moses had to put his staff out. And even back in Egypt, before the Dam and Safadeh and Kinnim, they had to throw something in the water or throw dust into the air. There's always a physical action before Elijah the prophet or Elisha did a miracle. They had to make sure there was some form of a container to hold the miracle. Miracles don't just come out of nowhere. They always need some small human input. That has a couple of reasons. Reason number one, it keeps our free will in check. But it does something else. It shows that miracles are in our hands. We have the power through true and great and perfect belief in God to bring around any great miracle. Nothing is beyond God. Because we believe in the God who is above nature. He's Hayah. Hoveyah, past, present, future, Yud with the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. That's the God of miracles and mercy. And nothing, my friends, nothing in this world can stop God from doing great things for his people in order to make what we call a Kiddush Hashem, a sanctification of his name. So all these miracles, from the snakes to the plagues and to the splitting seas, and all of the miracles that happened to the Jewish people throughout history until the Purim story, that last open miracle, were there to bring a great divine consciousness to this world. And we like that, and we want it back. And God willing, it will be back. That, my friends, is the secret to the Jewish miraculous nation that has been in this world for thousands of years. And we shouldn't forget that. We shouldn't forget that our nation began in a whirlwind of great miracles. That our existence for this long, that we're still here, saying L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem, and we haven't fully assimilated and disappeared, is probably the greatest miracle of world history. For sure. May we all see great miracles, God willing, because Nisan, that starts on Saturday and Sunday, is going to take us into a couple of weeks into Pesach itself, which is the holiday of miracles, and Nisan is the month of miracles. Just like we were redeemed in that Nisan, so too the final redemption will happen in Nisan as well. I'll leave you all there. We'll pick up next week on our third of 4 parts of the Pesach story. Thank you all very much. Have a great night, successful week. Shalom.